このために福島県内と埼玉県内の町民同士にわだかまりができてしまいました。
And as a result of this, there was actually a gap created between those who were still remaining within the greater Fukushima prefecture area and those who evacuated to Saitama outside of Tokyo.
情報が十分使えなかった、携帯電話が使えなかったことが原因です。
And the reason for this is we had no access to communications, information, to mobile phones.
And so how long did people stay? How many people were in this school? And what role did the government play? How has the government helped the refugees?
埼玉県には1400人ぐらい避難できました。
So we were able to evacuate around 1,400 of the residents to Saitama Prefecture outside of Tokyo.
その人たちは放射能からの強い影響はありませんでしたけども、だんだんと福島県の方に戻っていくようになりました。
So they were saved from the initial first exposure, the most serious exposure to radiation at the time, but many of them, unable to deal with this situation, gradually started to return to different parts of Fukushima Prefecture.
You have not returned back to your town?
はい、私は未だに放射能からの避難を続けております。
Yes, I am still living in evacuation away from the heavily radiated areas.
Can you talk about the meetings that you've had with the government? You have a remarkable association of nuclear mayors in Japan. The mayors who preside over towns that have nuclear power plants in them.
以前から事故を起こす前から事故を起こしてくれるなということを東電と政府に頼んでおりました。
From before the accident, we had always been strongly calling upon the government and also TEPCO to make sure that no accident was ever allowed to happen.
その時彼らは必ず町長、事故は起きないから大丈夫ですって言ってました。
And they were always telling us, don't worry, Mayor, no accident could ever happen.
この約束を破ったために私は反原発になりました。
However, because this promise was betrayed, this is why I became anti-nuclear.
I want to go to a clip from Atsushi Funahashi's new documentary film about the former residents of Futaba, where the Fukushima Daiichi Nuclear Power Plant is partly located. The film is called Nuclear Nation, the Fukushima Refugees Story. And we're going to go to a part of the film that shows a part of this remarkable meeting of government officials with the atomic mayors, the nuclear mayors of Japan.
The future of energy production and Japanese energy policy is currently being debated. And this is something we've communicated to you regarding the details of this review. I believe it's important to clearly define the terms as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
The industry minister leaves his seat in the first 5 minutes.
The central and pre-functional governments are working on the annual health check guidelines based on what we've researched. Until now, the impact of radiation on children appears negligible. However, we will endeavor to keep you apprised of any developments.
The nuclear crisis minister follows suit, citing official duties.
And now, we'd like to open the floor for comments. Please raise your hands.
I'm representing Futaba. I want to know why we're being made to feel this way. It's frustrating. What does the Nuclear Power Committee think? When you came and explained it to us, you lied, saying it was safe and secure. But we, who trusted and believed you, can no longer live in our own town.
That last voice was the mayor at the time of Futaba, Katsutaka Idogawa, who is with us today in our Tokyo studio. Futaba is where part of the Fukushima Daiichi Nuclear power plant is located. He was speaking, addressing this meeting of government officials and nuclear mayors from around Japan in August of 2011. You just heard, the voices of Goshi Hosono, who was the nuclear crisis minister of Japan, and Banri Kaiyeda, minister of the economy, trade, and industry. And after each of them spoke, they politely took their leave of the room before the mayors could address them. So they did not hear the Futaba mayor's statement about the lies from the government. Talk about that particular meeting.
はい。この事故以来、政府には早く手厚い会合をお願いしてきましたけども、
At the time, we were calling for a strong response and attention from the government since the disaster.
彼らは聞こうとしておりません。
However, they didn't even try to listen to what we were calling for.
いつまで経っても約束を果たそうとしていませんでしたので、
And they continued to not even try to make efforts to fulfill their responsibilities or promise to us.
被害を受けている私たちを目の前にして、都合の悪いことはいつもあのように去っていってしまってたんです。
And so they continued to appear before us, those who were suffering directly from the disaster, but instead of listening to something which would maybe be difficult for their ears to hear, they would just leave the room, not even listen to us at all.
残っていた彼らは政府の役人ですけども、私に事故を起こさないって約束していた者もおります。
And within those who were left in the room were some government officials, including some who were directly the ones who told me that no accident would ever happen.
彼らに何言ってもダメですので、後ろを向いて仲間に話をかけました。
However, no matter what I would try to appeal and say to them, it would not have any effect. So instead I turned around and appealed and spoke to my colleagues, my fellow residents.
本当のことを彼らに話そうとしたんです。
And I tried to tell them what was really happening, the situation.
Former Mayor Katsutaka Idogawa, you were a fierce proponent of nuclear power. You were pushing for 2 more reactors to be built even closer to Futaba than the others. You were proud of getting tens of millions of dollars for your town for hosting these reactors. How did you make your transition to being one of the most vocal government officials against all nuclear power?
私は事故は絶対ダメだ。原発には事故はダメだということの条件のもとに原発を進めました。
I had been supporting the nuclear power plants in our town on the condition that no accident, no disaster would be allowed to occur.
決して原発を好きでいたわけではありません。
It was not necessarily that I was actually totally in favor of the nuclear power plants.
原発の交付金はやがて何にもなくなって貧乏するようになっています。
However, the situation that was in place is without the nuclear power plants there, our city would be losing the financial benefits and perhaps unable to go forward economically.
当時町は倒産しそうな町になっていました。
The city was actually on the brink of bankruptcy beforehand.
なんとか町を救おうとして7、8号機の増設に同意していました。
And so in order to try and prevent the city from going into this kind of economic breakdown, I saw that building the new 2 reactors was perhaps the only way.
I want to go to a clip, another clip of Nuclear Nation that gives us a little background on the town of Futaba.
Futaba's farming history goes back over 1,000 years. In winter months, people had to leave town for work in the city. Reactors 5 and 6 came online in 1978 and 79. Money flowed in from the government, and the townspeople found themselves with lots of extra cash. They built roads, a library, a sprawling sports center, and made major upgrades to the infrastructure.
nation, talking about nuclear refugees, the nuclear refugees of Futaba. And we're joined by the former mayor who made the decision on his own right after the earthquake to move his entire town, to evacuate it to Tokyo.